morning, good afternoon, good evening, whether you're watching live or watching the replay. I just want to welcome you to another Tuesday edition, joining in by Dorothy. Dorothy, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Hi, everyone. And today we're going to be talking about this. We're talking about the unique experience of neurodivergent burnout. It's just a really fascinating article that I found. Scrolling through that here. And I think it's like a really cool piece that, Dorothy, you and I, we can just have a bit of a discussion about, a bit of a conversation. If anyone watching this, whether it's on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, wants to join the conversation, ask about it, then feel free to chime in, ask us a question about it. Because there's a lot that's been said about burnout, but it is important to look at things like the science. What does the evidence actually say, rather than just talking off the top of our heads about our experience? Is really important to understand, the scientific modality, how we can all help people with proven methods. And like the first thing I want to ask you, Dorothy, about this, it says here, burnout isn't merely about overworking, it's about over adapting. What does that mean to you?
So to me, I guess I would interpret that as maybe if you're a bit of a people pleaser, or you're in an environment that you really care about your performance in, so you're in a highly paced, stressful kind of environment, you might be over adapting to the conditions without actually assessing within yourself whether you are equipped to deal with all of those conditions. That's kind of how I interpret it, rather than having those boundaries, like, this is what I need, these are the basics, these are the things that I need to do to implement in my life to make sure that I don't have a breakdown or burnout. I guess over adapting, it's like you're meeting someone else's criteria rather than kind of holding on to your own boundaries.
Yeah, I agree. Like, here's the thing, when it's about like the over adaptation versus overwork. I even want to look at that as like a vice versa, like a black or white thing. Instead, I would rather say, instead of overworking, then we have to also look at over adapting as almost like a side dish, I suppose. Whatever environment you're in, because people may not just burn out in work, they could burn out in their family lives, their personal lives. I'm not sure if that's something you ever experienced, Dorothy. I'll just speak for myself. However, I've been in personal and family relationships where I was investing so much of my time, so much of my energy, that had drained me more than when I was in the office at work, funnily enough. And I would like be in the office, and I couldn't, like at home, when I woke up, I couldn't wait to get to the office sometimes, where I would sometimes work for 18 hours a day or so and dread going back home. It's weird. Don't know if that's something you relate to at all.
Yeah, no, it is. I think if you're someone who cares a lot about external validation, you want to work in a place that validates you because it's high profile, or there's a sense of prestige because you're working hard and attaining these achievements. Often you are also, or you can also be someone who needs validation in your personal life. And that might mean the same, like not holding your boundaries up, and instead kind of doing what someone else wants you to do, and sacrificing your own needs for someone else's, so that they make you feel like loved or liked or wanted. It's definitely something I've struggled with a lot. It takes a lot of getting to know yourself, I think, to implement kind of more healthy techniques for dealing with personal and professional relationships.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, just getting to know ourselves. And we can get to know ourselves in the context, the broader context of the science. And back to the article, it talks about here, like, what is neurodivergent burnout? And I'm not going to read what's on the screen. The only thing that I'm going to point to is like this here. Chronic stress plus expectation plus masking minus adjustments or support equals neurodivergent burnout. What that means for anyone who isn't aware of that in particular, chronic stress, that's stress that's happening all the time. It is a chronic condition. The expectations that could be of others or yourselves. Masking is something that particularly is relevant for people who have autism, but a lot of people do it anyway. I've masked as well, and then they don't have the adjustments or support. That's the specifics of what neurodivergent burnout is versus, normal burnout. And it says over here, and we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, actually, what does it look like? Chronic exhaustion, inability to ask for help, changes in mood, and extreme cases, physical illness. And then it has a whole bunch of other things over here. And although it says autistic burnout, it's not just people who are autistic. It's not even, I would say, specific people who are neurodivergent as such. And how many of us are completely neurotypical? Dorothy, have you ever met anyone in your life who's completely, you would call neurotypical? I don't know.
Maybe, but I think we tend to remember the neurodivergent ones.
Perhaps. I mean, I don't know. I mean, here's the thing, and like these terms, these labels, I don't really think it matters where you define yourself, or rather where a doctor may come in or a professional and says, you are this, you have this. At the end of the day, it's more so what you do about it. And we have looked at some of the symptoms over here. But I guess what I really want to speak to now is, how can you, let's just say, for example, it may not be yourself having a burnout. You may not be in hospital right now, and you may never get to a hospital. You may never have a burnout. You may love your life. But what I want to ask is, like, how can you support someone who is experiencing burnout? Because at the end of the day, what we need is we need to step in and help people. And, it says here there's limited research on how to treat it specifically. But there are things, there are some suggestions that support organizations have. I just want to talk about this one, is energy accounting systems. I'm not going to talk much about spoon theory, not least because it sounds quite funny, spoon theory, but like basically I will talk about energy accounting systems. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of it, it basically is what it says on the tin, an accounting system, usually finance. But you can also take an account of your energy levels. And we spoke about this just the other week when we were talking about, the Crush Your Chaos guide, didn't we, Dorothy? About taking into stock, what you do for your energy. And if anyone wants it, you can just grab a link to that guide. You can read it in less than 60 seconds as a one-page cheat sheet as such. In terms of what an energy accounting system actually is, simple case of asking a question. Does this give me energy or does it take away energy? That's it. I can say that if I get adequate amounts of sleep, 8 hours or so, I feel more energized. If I have my bulletproof coffee, I feel more energized. If I spend time with my loved ones, I feel more energized. I don't know, Dorothy, is there anything that you have to say about this? Like looking at the activities, the things you do, what gives you energy, what not? Anything that can help people who may be on the verge of burnout?
Yeah, I mean, I think like all the examples you've given, how we can give ourselves or boost our energy are really valid. I think also it's about knowing when to walk away from things that are depleting your energy. So for me, if I spent all day chatting to people, by the end of the day, I would feel like completely depleted, and I would need a long period of time on my own to recharge. I think that's more of an introverted sort of perspective. Or if I spent too long in a city, or in like a claustrophobic, dark urban area, then I would probably feel my energy levels depleting until I went to a park or was in green space. So I think as well as knowing what to add to our routines and lives to give us energy, it's about understanding what we need to kind of take ourselves away from at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. And that's actually what the article says next. And what I was going to touch upon is not additive. This is all subtractive. This is literally all subtractive, by which I mean it's not about giving yourself more things to do. Someone who's stressed out, burning the candles at both ends, you give them even one more thing to do, let alone 10. If it's like 5 minutes, then that's not going to help them at all. It's about looking at what they're already doing, taking it away. And that's exactly what it says here next. Set boundaries to ensure there's enough time to process. We spoke about this already, saying no. The most powerful word that you can say is no. If possible, take time off and ensure that is spent engaging in relaxation activities. And I'm not going to go on here because, but what I will do is I'm going to, post a link to the article in the comments after this if anyone wants to like take a look more at what the science says. There's so much more, like especially like Wharton. I love that Wharton, where they do a lot of research on it. In general, they do loads of research. I'm going to continue this theme of like looking more at the science, evidence-based strategies. But I think you touched on a very powerful point, Dorothy, about saying no more, taking stuff away from your life. Now I don't know if like someone has a list of, but say someone like it sounds good in when you say it out loud. But I mean, I want to get real practical. And sorry, Dorothy, I'm going to grill you really hard on this now. What if there's a busy executive, man, woman, doesn't matter, working 18 hours a day, has a husband, wife, dog, cat, kids. Let's just add the tortoise in there too. I don't know why. It just sounds nice. They have to feed all of them. They got to buy rice and all of that kind of stuff. Probably not rice. They're buying a lot of stuff. They want to do this and that. And the kids have all these like sports and hobbies they're doing. And they got to work 18 hours a day. Or they feel they have to work 18 hours a day. And they just don't have that time to spend with friends, except maybe in the bar after work. What can they take away from all of that activity that they're doing without appearing weak to their family or colleagues or co-workers? I don't know. What do you reckon, Dorothy?
I mean, anyone who's having to work 18 hours a day, I just don't think that is efficient use of your time. How can you possibly be productive if you're working, getting a couple of hours sleep every night and working for that long? And really, I think if you are working those kind of hours, you need to ask yourself, why? Is it because you're not being efficient? And if you're not being efficient, is it because you're just constantly wearing yourself down to the point that you then have to stay up later and longer to get tasks done, which might take someone else a shorter period of time? And also, like, again, back to the boundaries thing, who's asking you to work 18-hour long days? I mean, is that a pressure that someone else is putting on you? I highly doubt it, because like that's probably in breach of employment law, and like no employer would expect any employee to kind of sustain that level of momentum at a job. That's probably internal pressure that you're putting on yourself. And I think like the real question you need to ask, because you feel out of control, right? You look at your day, there's no time, you've got all this pressure and responsibility, but you just need to ask yourself, like, why am I working such ridiculous hours? Like, is this an actual external valid necessary measure, or is this a pressure from within? I think 90% of the time it will be an internal pressure that you then need to look at and hopefully like relax a bit.
Pretty much. I mean, pretty much right. If we don't ask that question, why, which is a very powerful question, why am I working 18 hours a day? Why am I doing this? I mean, it's a 3-letter word, but an incredibly powerful one at that. And no one can ask it for you. I mean, if you, like, here's the thing, I was working 18-hour days myself, 6 days a week in a corporate job. And I did have people from the outside, like my girlfriend at the time and my parents and my friends say, why are you working 18 hours a day? And I just brushed them off. I was like, whatever. And I did burn out, as you know, as the people watching this probably know, if they've heard my story. It was only when I asked myself, after the fact, after I went through my burnout, after I had to take the time off work, after I not missed out on a year of my life, but it was a year of my life to recover. I said, why did I actually do that in the first place? And then came to terms that, it was me doing it, and I had to take responsibility for my life. Only if you, the person watching this, ask yourself why, can you ever affect any internal change. And if you have if you are someone, you're looking at your spouse or close friend of yours and they are burning out, you can ask them. I wouldn't necessarily ask them why, because why is a defensive question. That's what it happened when people ask me why. I got my backup, you know what I mean? I basically, there's a word that I'm not going to use for the sake of, but you can imagine what the word is. It starts with an F, ends in a K, and it's 4 letters long. And I basically said that followed by off to them if they ask me why. Point is, like, you can help them, you can support them. And the article that we shared, I'm just going to share it one final time. It's on Creased Puddle, you can see here. We tell you how to go to creasedpuddle.co.uk. Very recent article, 25th of September, the unique experience of neurodivergent burnout. And you can scroll through that in your own time. It will give you more information, tells you about the services they offer. I think it's a really cool organization. I'd love to hear more from them. They got more resources there. So if that's something anyone wants to check out. In the meantime, Dorothy, have you got any questions, anything you want to ask me or share before we wrap things up?
I guess like one big huge problem for a lot of people who are watching this, a lot of people who need help and are stressed or at risk of burnout, is we often get into professions. I was the same as you. I worked in corporate law. I worked for a big magic circle firm, and I remember going to a doctor and I was so stressed and had severe depression and anxiety, and she said, "This isn't a sentence, you can walk away." And I said to myself, she's insane. Of course this is a sentence. Like, I've been to law school, I've got this amazing opportunity, like I'm a failure if I walk away from this, I'm nothing, like this is everything, of course it's a sentence. And I think, like, I now would never let a job make me feel like it was a sentence. That's taken a lot of work and a lot of time. But I guess, yeah, it's asking yourself, like, is this a sentence, or do I have freedom of choice to take a different role that's slightly less demanding, to move laterally to another employer that's not going to be as demanding? I think it's about knowing that you always have a choice, even if you feel completely trapped by your own worldview.
Yeah, and that's something that, like, Dorothy, I write about in the final chapter of my 2 books coming out next year.
Yeah.
The final chapter is literally all about that. I call it the path of the soul, moving along the continuum from victim, which is no choice, to empowered, where we have lots of choices. And from the viewpoint of victim, no choice, it feels like a sentence. By the way, I wish I had your doctor back in like 2017 or so. But like, where the victim standpoint, where we have like no choice whatsoever, we are the victim of circumstances. Life is terrible. Everything is a sentence. Empowered looks pretty good on the continuum. The path of the soul, what I talk about in the book, and I won't go into detail now because it's not relevant, is that there's something beyond empowerment, beyond lots of choices. But we're not going to cover that right now. People, if they want, can read the book when it comes out. They can pre-order it on Kickstarter. I'll post a link later. If you want to hear more about this or anything else, then you can reach out to myself or Dorothy at meet.adjelevate.com. It'll usually be with me, but if you don't want to meet with me because for whatever reason you prefer Dorothy, then just let us know in the comment there. And then Dorothy may be more than happy to help you, especially as I'm going to be in Peru next week and spending at least 6 months there with my wonderful fiance Chris and her family, and we'll see how life goes from there. So thank you all for watching this. One more time, I'm going to share that article up on the screen over here, the unique experience of neurodivergent burnout. Find that at creasepuddle.co.uk. And until then, I want to wish all of you watching this a beautiful, blessed and prosperous rest of the week. Reach out to us at any time and take care.